Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life podcast. You are here with two Laurels talking about inner work. And this month, we've been focusing on life lessons. And what else, Laurel? Do you remember? I feel like, uh, this has been kind of messenger month.
Yes,
And maybe we're the messengers too. I feel like today we're the messengers. I don't know about you.
I think so too. And it's so funny. You ask, do I remember?
Yeah,
When we record and
we're in
it,
it. I
we're in
know.
it, and we just recorded 3 days ago, and I really couldn't tell you.
Okay, so here's the first thing I want to tell people, and our listeners and our friends out there that are really doing their inner work. One of the beautiful things about doing your inner work as the years go by and you continue on your trajectory of doing it, number one, it gets less painful and less messy. So that's one of the first benefits. The second one is hopefully you're doing the work of being really um, capable of living in the present moment.
Mm,
And when you're living in the present moment, you are alive, awake, engaged in the present moment. And then, if all goes well, you just let it go.
absolutely.
And I think our podcast is a great example of that. And when I say, sometimes I say to you, Laurel, do you remember what we talked about? Because sometimes that gives me a pause to remember what we talked about and to come back to where we were, right, when we last recorded. And so, you and I are really living in present time. We have done so much beautiful work that our lives are in the present moment. And sometimes it's hard to remember what we did 3 days ago, even, right?
Right. And it's so interesting because, that is new for me. And in this space in particular, this happens with me or for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something about being present with you and our listeners that just changes the way that I'm going to say information comes through,
Mm-hmm.
the way I think about things, the way I feel things in my body.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because presence has been one of the key topics lately. I'm taking the neuroscience of change course again.
Yeah.
I think we're into our third session. And presence and how to create presence is a key topic in that
Yeah.
course
Yeah.
because it changes your brain and your nervous system, right?
So
It
very much.
changes the
Yeah.
way that we relate to people, that we are with people, that it's more than just living in the present, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
it's having this sense of presence in the here and now.
Right. And we are actually then processing our experience differently than when we're in a reactive state.
Yes,
And that's the huge thing, right? It's here, it's now, it's gone. It's here, it's now, it's gone. I mean, it's literally 1 minute after another of that experience. And we let go. When we're in a reactive state, right? We are reliving along with living in the moment. And so we're reinforcing old stories, old habits, old patterns. And that leads us into our topic of
that
today.
was brilliant. I know you didn't plan that because we do not script this, but that just was the perfect introduction for our topic.
It
So
was, it
tell
was.
tell our listeners.
So our topic today is how your conditioning controls you.
Yeah.
And I feel like for everybody listening to this podcast episode, I want you to take a breath and I really want you to take in all the things that we say today because I was reflecting before we hopped on today on the topic and on the season and feeling like this is kind of our last topic-y show of the season. We'll be back in July with some really different kinds of episodes for everybody. But this one is it's such a beautiful wrap up to the season because the season was really powerful. There's so many great topics in there for everybody. There's so much great information. And this one is like, the icing on the cake. If you can tune into this and trust us and the words that come through us today and really heed the call to work on your conditioning, you will never regret it. Trust me. It's such a big
Yeah,
thing.
it is huge. And it takes so much of the other topics we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
It takes trust.
Yeah.
It takes it takes
Surrendering,
courage. Surrendering, yes. And
grace,
courage. Well, grace
grace.
is a big one, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And presence, first
communication.
and foremost,
Yeah.
communication, so much communication with self, with
Yes.
others, right?
Yeah.
To to challenge yourself, like moment to moment, day to day. What's going through my mind? How am I thinking about this? What are my old patterns? What am I judging? What am I resisting? And we can discover so much as we watch our mind do its thing
Yes. Yes.
and watch our emotional state and how much we are really just reacting to the moment versus being a presence that is strong and clear and shows up in a way that you really want to show up and not get thrown by, you know, whoever's there and whatever's going on. Instead, you're like staying steady and I'm here to do this. I'm here to say
Yeah.
this. I'm here to be this. Yeah.
When we think about conditioning, or the way I think about it often is my behavior, my choices, my beliefs that aren't mine, that
Mhm.
I learned either verbally or non-verbally, I may have learned by watching. I or someone may have told me this is the way it has to be, this is the way it should be. How about this is who you are, this is how you are.
Yeah.
Um, all of those conditionings of being the polite people pleaser, knowing my role, staying within the bounds of my role, right? The confines
Mhm.
of my role, which is how, when we think about conditioning controlling us.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's really interesting because some of that shows up in autopilot, right?
Yeah.
When you think about our awareness, right? If we do have presence of mind and body, our mind brings things to us, but our body also brings information to us. If we have that presence, there's sometimes clues that I feel in my body that lead me to ask, like, oh, is this my intentional choice? Is this what I want?
Yeah.
Or am I doing this, thinking this, because I have been taught to think this
Right.
or do it, right? So
Yeah.
what about you? How do you catch yourself in acting from conditioning?
Yeah. I think that it's uncomfortable now. It's uncomfortable when I'm acting from conditioning and it's in a way that is not serving me or other people well. It's very, very uncomfortable. So I think that the discomfort, like being able to follow the trail of discomfort in your being is so important. And it's one of the things that, as an addictive culture, which we are, we try to escape from the discomfort versus going into it and understanding how it can help us bring us a better life. And
Yeah.
so, to be able to get in touch with the discomfort is so important. One of the things that I really want to impress on everybody today, as you're listening, is you have to look at what you're choosing every day. Your conditioning will give you a clue, right? Your choices give you the story, literally, of your conditioning. Your conditioning will give you a clue as to where you're out of control with your choices.
Right.
And so it's kind of a circular experience, right?
Can we add a triangle to that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's when you find, you said, out of control with your choices. Is that what you said?
Examine your choices, right?
Right.
Start to
And
examine your choices. Yeah,
and I was thinking, when you're examining your choices and you're having this discomfort coming up, right?
yeah,
The alignment, right? It's also, are you acting in alignment with your true self?
Right.
right?
And
And so
what
that's
you
why I think the
want.
triangle, right?
Yes, yes. And what you want, right? Because we
Yeah,
come back to a lot of the discomfort comes from, I want this, and my behavior's taking me over here to this. It's
yeah,
not in alignment with what I really want. And that is making me uncomfortable. And on a spiritual soul level, that's like the ultimate discomfort. Because if your soul is trying to speak to you through what you want, and that's not like the cookie. I'm not talking about a cookie. I'm talking about the love of your life, work that you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day and you feel really good about. It's being the parent you want to show up as, right? It- these are like the big things when your soul is speaking to you. And if you're not in alignment with those choices, it is very uncomfortable and it will continue to be until you get your alignment worked out.
yeah,
Yeah. And your choices are a guide to that. They're a guide
yeah.
to that. Like literally, if you just spent the next 30 days, everybody, writing down, what did I do today? What choices did I make about how I spent every hour of my waking life? Like, and look at it, really look at it.
And even the preemptive, right? Like, you can look back and reevaluate, but looking forward, I also think allows us to have more intentional choices throughout the day,
Yes. Yes.
right? I know in coaching it comes up and it sounds simple, but there's a lot to be said for making decisions in advance, right?
Hmm.
Because once that we make the decision, tomorrow I'm not eating the cookie. I might eat it 2 days from now, but I'm not eating it tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Or tomorrow I'm not watching more than 1 half-hour episode of my favorite binge watch show. Whatever the decision is, when we make it in advance, almost like when we choose what we're going to wear the next day, the night before,
Yeah.
we have fewer decisions to make. And I think we at least for me, I tend to get lost less, fewer times in my indecision, which is often, I'm going to call it the temptation of what is easy in this world, what um, will feel good temporarily, rather
Impulsive.
than the
And yeah, the impulsive
impulsive,
decisions.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
reactive, right.
Yeah.
When I think about that, when we can proactively make those choices, have fewer decisions, and keep our word to ourselves of what we said we're going to do,
Yeah.
then I find I fall into the conditioning less, right? I'm
Right.
not acting out of someone else's choices.
Yeah. So, Laurel, what you also laid out for everybody is the pathway to reconditioning
Oh,
in a
yes.
way where now you can relax and fall into your conditioning patterns because these conditioned patterns have given you the result that you're looking for or have set you on the path to getting the result and the experience that you really want deep
Yeah.
inside.
Can you give an example for our listeners? Can you think of something that comes up, whether for
Wow.
you or a client story?
Yeah, I know. I'll talk about my desire to change my eating patterns. And so my trajectory over my life, right, was I had the good fortune of having a metabolism and a genetic makeup where I could eat what I want. I was an active, very active person. I burned calories during the day, and I never thought about what I ate. I just enjoyed food. I love food. I love the preparation of food. I love the sitting down at communal meals, family meals. I love the beauty of food. Like there's so much around food that has been such a pleasure in my life. Well, when I hit menopause and got to the point of my body's metabolism slowing, having thyroid problems, so I had this complex of I can't eat what I want anymore and be comfortable in my body because now it's retaining fluid, it's gaining weight, it's uncomfortable. These things that my body doesn't agree with anymore. And so I had to I was tasked if I tasked myself, I wasn't tasked with, I tasked myself with the Look, if you're going to be comfortable in your body, Laurel, you have to figure out what you can eat, what's the right amount to eat now, and when to eat it. Now, all of this happened also as I was just entering my second marriage and happily engaged and connected with the love of my life. And he loves food too. And so we love to take meals together. We love to decide where we're going to eat together. We love to decide what we're going to eat together. And he can eat a lot more than me. So now I'm pacing myself with somebody who consumes all this more food, and I'm on a trajectory of not doing what I've tasked myself with, which is,
Yeah.
oh, you really need to look at this, right? And so I just want to say that it has taken me years of changing the patterns that were so conditioned and established. And the momentum was there for decades of just doing whatever I wanted and not having any consequences to it. It
Yeah.
never bothered how I felt. It never interrupted the functioning of my body. I just did it. And now it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time
It's
to
a
get
great
there.
story about reconditioning.
Yeah.
And what you reminded me, often I think of conditioning as behaviors that we adopt because of conditioning other people, how we were conditioned by
Right.
other people,
Yeah.
right? But what I'm hearing is some of our conditioning can just be because of our own circumstances,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I can think of, and this is a silly example maybe, but when I was in my corporate job and making six figures, retail therapy was a real thing for me.
Yeah.
I bought a lot more of material goods. Um, and it's been 5 years since I've been out of that job, and my income is very different as an entrepreneur and a coach.
Mm.
And even with the birth of my granddaughter recently, someone said to me, "Oh, you must be having so much fun buying all those sweet baby girl things." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not buying those things." And my reaction was, she has my granddaughter has received so many gifts from other people. I'm not buying those things. And again, like the shift in my conditioning of how I spend my time, how I spend my money, the choices I am making,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And the
Eh,
gifts I am giving to my granddaughter are different than, the sweet little clothes that she'll grow out of very soon, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because that too was my own self-conditioning of I, for whatever reason, that pattern, that behavior for me was comfortable and fun and for many, many years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can tell you the first couple of years of having that shift in income, it wasn't comfortable to figure out, to learn how to still have all the enjoyment and fun without that level of income, right?
Yeah.
Without that level of spending, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Right. What else are you going to do that fulfills whatever that was fulfilling, that fun
Yes.
or,
Yeah.
taking care of self, giving to self,
Yeah.
whatever it was. And that's part of the discovery, isn't it, Laurel?
It is.
When we
Yeah.
do this work is,
Yeah.
what am I going to do instead? And that's
Yes.
often one of the dilemmas, that
Yes.
we get to. And one of the things that can be a little bit of a complex equation, right? But is so worth the examination and the time of really contemplating what am I do what is my motivation for this? What is the reason that I'm really doing this?
Yeah.
And when I can discover that, then I have a better chance of what can I do instead that would
Yes.
give me that feeling, that would give me that pleasure, that would give me that jolt of adrenaline or whatever it is that you're getting from it. Um,
Yes.
that's so important because if we are going to develop these patterns that bring the conditioning into our experience that allow us to develop the life that we really want, see, that's the trajectory, right? Is change your choices, recondition yourself to start to bring about the kind of life that you really want to be living.
Yeah.
And that is a uh, it's a series of choices. It's a series of changes. It's a series of redirecting your will. It's a series of redirecting your thinking. Right. It's,
Yes.
yeah, it's
And
not
I,
just
I
one.
think
Yeah.
you're onto something in kind of understanding the core need or
Mhm.
how that behavior serves you, right?
Yeah.
And so what is that void, you know, that you're filling with that conditioned behavior?
Right.
Um, or, you know, what is the fear that that conditioned behavior is is keeping you
Yeah.
in that behavior, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I
it's
know
so
that
interesting.
yeah, but we also get, I want to also impress on people like when you start wanting to know why I'm doing it, why is it like this? Why did I end up like this? Why, like be really leery of that why question. Because if you get stuck there, right, and you're like,
Oh,
I
yes.
can't stop because I don't understand why. That's not true. That is not a truthful story. And people use that a lot as an excuse, right?
Yes.
As I need to understand why I'm doing it and then I can stop. Well, you know what? You can understand it and it's still really hard to change the pattern.
That's right. Right. And I think that too is so important because if it is the searching for the understanding that is keeping you stuck, then
Yeah.
the forward focus of how do I want to feel instead, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do I feel now? How do I want to feel instead?
Yeah.
Right? What feeling am I seeking by this behavior?
Yeah.
Right? Not why do I have that feeling or who taught me that behavior, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so it really is important to be focused on how you want to feel, how you want your life to look. What kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah. Yeah. So the reflecting is really important. We talk about it a lot here. I
Yeah.
think it's always worthwhile. It can bring some really good gems into your life. But what we don't want to do is connect, thinking that it's true that once we know why, then it'll be easier to change. Those two
Right.
things don't necessarily go together. We kid ourselves when we think that. And so the work is there no matter what, to change the pattern. It's a combination of self understanding. It's a combination of how you treat yourself, and then this forward looking, what am I going to do instead? And how am I going to set up myself for success? Right. And with every client, it's a different story. With every person, it's a different story of what is it that you're going to do that will bring you about, will allow you to get the results that you want. And you talked about having a plan, right? Having a plan of your day so that you're not left to willy-nilly, decisions, impulsive decisions, decisions driven by hunger and whatever else it is.
Exhausted decisions,
Exhaustion.
right?
Yeah, and overwhelm, right?
Board decisions. We make decisions for so many reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I would say how your conditioning controls you is until you've done the work of, um, you know, consciously looking at your choices, doing the work of reconditioning what your present routine and experience is like. Really, the question is your old conditioning controls you until your new conditioning sets the stage for
Yeah.
your new routine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting because we use the word or the title of how your conditioning controls you. And I was just thinking that that example of your past conditioning as the controlling, but your future conditioning or your reconditioning based on the future you want
Yeah.
is liberating conditioning, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's freedom that comes in reconditioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so funny to me because I was thinking that we started this episode talking about presence, right? And how if we are, kind of focused on the life we want, and we often do that by thinking about the future, that thinking about the actions we take every day are creating the life that we want. They are, in essence, the life we have,
Mm,
right? That's where I think that the presence is so important, to be present of mind, present of body, right? Intentional,
yeah.
living in this day to day.
Mm,
And I was just speaking the other day and about our relationship with time. And oftentimes when we focus in this future, we don't ever make those things come true, because the future, we always think we have time, right?
right.
Oh, I
Right.
have time and I'll do better tomorrow, right? But bringing it right back into today, we really do then achieve the things that we want our future to be.
Yes, yes, that it is about today. It's not about next
Year,
year, next week, next month, next
next new
season.
moon.
Yeah, next new moon, right? It is about what are you doing today? And so your conditioning, how you're conditioning yourself today is what really matters. And if you're relying on old habits, old patterns, limiting beliefs, and ways that make you really uncomfortable, start slow. Let's go back to the start slow.
Yes,
One step at a time, right? One day at a time, 1 minute at a time. What are you going to add today or replace today? Or what's the new pattern that you want to start today that will bring you as a result that you want? And, I'll say it one more time, because it was the thing that changed my life. And Laurel, you say what changed yours, like the one thing that you would encourage people, but mine is just give yourself 5 minutes a day to sit with yourself and just breathe and watch your mind and tune into your inner world. Start with 5 minutes. Do it 5 minutes every day, right? It's how do you start to gain presence is by learning how to be present with yourself first and foremost.
yeah. And I think that is critically important in the world we live in,
Yeah.
where we don't take that time to really sit with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree wholeheartedly. Uh,
Yeah.
if you can find 5 minutes at the beginning of your day and 5 minutes at the end of the day, it is a beautiful practice to
Mm-hmm.
just have some time for self-reflection and intention, gratitude,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you
Well,
wanted a
Laurel,
mantra or a question,
yes.
I'll chime in on Laurel's curiosity factor, which has always been like one of her main, uh, suggestions, shall we say, is get curious. So your mantra, your question might be consistently, I wonder why I'm doing this right now. Wonder why I'm saying this right now. Wonder why I'm thinking that right now. Just wonder, 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 right? Instead
Yes.
of being self-critical or thinking, I have to change that right now. Just a lighthearted, I wonder why. I wonder what. I wonder what that's about. Hmm. And what
Yeah.
could I do differently? If I want to do it differently, what could I do differently? Yeah,
Yes. As easy as that.
it is. It can be. And gentle lightheartedness, cheerful indifference, as my teacher
Yes.
used to say.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Okay. I think
that
that's
was
a wrap.
another beautiful conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Laurel. And I hope that we helped you look at your conditioning today with a mindful eye and a serious eye because we want you to have the beautiful life you want. We know you can do it.
And we
Don't
know
let your,
you're going to enjoy it when you do it.
that's right. Don't let your old conditioning stop you. You can do this. Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Off we go. We'll be back for more beautiful work, beautiful life. We'll see you next month for some interesting time together. Hmm. Come and
I'm
listen
curious
in.
what it's going to be.
I am too. Let's find out. I'll see you in July.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye,
for now,
listeners.
everybody.